Chapter 10, Paying the Piper. Here, take my card. I don't plan on completely quitting the hunt, but I do think about moving somewhere nicer. I hear Isle City is beautiful this time of year, he said as he walked out the door. Red examined the car and saw an encrypted email address and also an encrypted phone numbers. Such things were usually managed by private groups who wanted to keep privacy of their clients as much of a priority as possible. Even if some of the clients were doing something illegal, they generally believed people monitoring it without consent was a far greater crime. Ghost Hunter made his way to the door, and Red continued to read her new business card, fascinated by what was on it. Well intending to keep her word, Red sat and read the card for the next 30 minutes. Interestingly, the name on the business card wasn't Ghost Hunter, but a name that was most likely his civilian pseudonym. Claudius Clyde Caron, Ghost Hunter Specialist, Red read from the card. The alliteration was pretty cool and easy to remember. Opening her grimoire, she inserted the business card and closed it. Part of the magic of the grimoire, only she could find the card in there, and if anyone else tried to search for it, they would never find it. Most books had a similar spell on it, so it was relatively easy to make it stronger with some shifting script. She then began to write in her grimoire, detailing what she had learned for herself, and what she would be writing in her police report, because she was going to collect her payday and she was going to need words with Tiffany when she got back from getting ice cream. Humming to herself, she wrote as she wondered for a minute how Ghost Hunter was doing. Hearing a loud bang from across the street, along with the shattering of glass, Red nodded to herself. Saw that coming. Let's see if he is good against the living as he is against the dead, Red said to herself as other glass in the house broke while she tried to fill out her own personal notes in her grimoire. Across the street, Ghost Hunter was in the Gunderson's house with Gary holding a shotgun up to his shoulder, aiming it at Ghost Hunter's head. Ghost Hunter rested his hand on his trick pistol, and Gary had his hand on the trigger. Ghost Hunter shook his head, sighing to herself. Did your wife bother to tell you that I was coming to collect my fee? The job is done, and now I want my reward, Ghost Hunter said to Gary. Gary instead laughed. He was clearly trying to look tough, but the fact he was shaking while he was pointing the gun, and that Ghost Hunter was invited in before having a gun pointed at his head, made Ghost Hunter think that maybe they didn't even want to pay the last 3,000 centi. She said that you were coming. Well, we want to renegotiate, Gary said. Small world. I was coming over to renegotiate with her too. Shut up! So here's the deal. You keep your consulting fee and your life. You walk out that door, or you'll be paid in buckshot. Gary finished, trying to sound tough, but his arms and legs were shaking even more. He clearly was hoping that Ghost Hunter would just agree and walk out of the house. This was a man who was used to the only crimes being what he could get away with, and now he was being asked to commit murder, and he wasn't sure if he was a killer. This was someone that Ghost Hunter could easily exploit. Tell me, Gary, was this your idea? Ghost Hunter asked while removing his hands from his trick pistol. He was sure he could distract Gary and even talk him down, away from trying to shoot him. If not, well, then he could improvise. He felt his heart racing from the situation, but he knew he had to appear in control, or else things would rapidly spin out of control. Well, no, but my wife said that we need to do this to make the money, so we can own all the homes and turn a profit. She said no loose ends, and that's what you are right now, Gary said, pointing the gun at Ghost Hunter, but his shaking was getting much worse. Well, if she is trying to tie up loose ends, why is she making you a loose end, Gary? Ghost Hunter asked, crossing his arms. Gary turned red and opened and closed his mouth for a few times like a fish out of water, before finally closing his mouth and lowering the gun a few inches, his finger off the trigger. Why would I be a loose end? There's nothing tying any of this to me in any way, he said with complete sincerity. Ghost Hunter shook his head and sighed before pointing at the gun he bought from Gary just last week. Gary, I bought the gun that killed the ghost from you. The bullets are from you, and the inscribing is from you. If you kill me, then the entire crime is all on you, because then there is no witness to state who hired me. And then your wife can pin it all on you. She doesn't have to pay more than 5,000 centi, and she gets a free divorce from you. She gets to own your business, and she gets to own all the homes. Think for a moment. I bet your wife isn't even in the house right now, is she? Well, no, but that's not because she wanted to pin it all on me. Why isn't she in the house then? She went to go get milk. When? About 8 hours ago, after she talked to the detective. Don't you find that the least bit suspicious? I mean, she could have recommended a different gun shop so it wasn't linked to you. Or you could run a background check, so at the very least you could have made the argument that it was sold legally. Or hell, you could have even at least made an invoice to track the fact the gun was sold, therefore not your fault. With all of that in mind, how are you going to get out of trouble with the police? Ghost Hunter finished, and Gary lowered his gun for a second before lifting it up and pointing it at Ghost Hunter. I love my wife. I trust my wife. So you must be lying, Gary said as he lifted the gun and fired exactly where Ghost Hunter was just a moment ago. Already, Ghost Hunter was across the room, moving quickly and planning his next move, ducking and weaving. He wasn't bulletproof in the way Red Prince was, but he knew if he wasn't hit, he didn't need to be. He also didn't need to be faster than a bullet, just faster than Gary could aim. Honestly, with how much he was shaking, Gary very clearly had a little control, but Ghost Hunter would need to stop this quickly before someone got hurt. Picking up the flower in its pot, he threw it towards Gary, and sure enough, Gary closed his eyes and lifted his arms to protect him. The gun still in arm, firing upwards towards the chandelier. The glass broke and began to fall down to the ground, and the poorly secured shotgun pushed against Gary's big belly. Now his belly hit by the backlash, he keeled over, trying to catch his breath, dropping the gun to the ground. Okay, Gary. Can I call you Gary? This is why you don't close your eyes when pulling the trigger, and this is also why you don't stiff your hunter, Ghost Hunter said, reaching down and picking up the shotgun as he began to explore the house. I'm taking this away from you until you can act like a responsible adult. I don't suppose you could just tell me where your wife keeps your money, would you? He asked Gary. The gun shop and the owner only moaned in response, still in too much pain to respond. I didn't think so. Just stay here. You'll be fine after the police are called, when the detective wakes up from her little nap, Ghost Hunter said, remembering the long lie that Red Prince was trying to sell. Any chance of dealing with this diplomatically went out of the window when people started shooting at the windows. Now, if I was enough money to buy up the entire neighborhood, where would I be? Ghost Hunter asked himself as he began to search the house. First, he started by going into what was clearly the master bedroom by the size and the fact there were 2 bathrooms attached. Nothing in either one, nor under the bed, nor even in the closet. Failing this, he checked all the hall closets, but there was still nothing there. He was starting to get a little worried. He was running out of time, and if he couldn't find all of the promised treasure, he was going to leave this job empty-handed. Worse than empty-handed, because he was stood successfully by all the stupid shoppers who signed him up to shoot spirits. Checking finally in the study marked Helen's Study by the gold-plated nameplate above the door, he saw in the room was a large oak desk, a locked file drawer, a floor-to-ceiling safe, and even a laptop. Seeing the safe, he chuckled to himself. Rich people and their safes, he muttered to himself as he approached it with one of his trick pistols at the ready, carefully inserting the thermite bullets into his gun. People loved to imagine vaults or safes as keeping things safe from anyone who's trying to get into them. They certainly are good against fire, floods if they're waterproof, and might even deter someone who didn't have the code or don't have the time. Well, sadly for you, I have both time and the combination, Ghost Hunter said, backing up, aiming his gun, and firing the thermite bullet. It was a special compound designed to melt down constructs made of heavy steel and even Megamech's armor. A civilian safe wasn't going to last. After 2 minutes, there was a hole burned through large enough for him to reach through. Giving it an extra minute to cool off, he reached inside and pushed the emergency release. Large safes like these had to come with an emergency release on the inside, just to make sure that no one accidentally got trapped on the inside. Now the safe was released open, and Ghost Hunter could see on the inside. Sure enough, on top of piles of important-looking paperwork was a large bank bag marked with a stylized AI. Shrugging, Ghost Hunter looked inside the bag and saw rolls upon rolls of auras. A single golden aura was worth 25 denarii, or 2,500 centi, and each roll contained 40 auras, so with 21 rolls of aura, it looked like Ghost Hunter's entire payment was in this convenient-to-carry bag. If you could call 50 pounds of gold convenient. Picking up his gold like a reverse St. Nicholas, Ghost Hunter made his way out to the front door, making sure to leave the shotgun in the study. Making it to the front door, he was crawling after him, still gasping, but now able to say a few words. Don't. Please. Don't. You don't know how hard we worked for that money, he said, looking up at Ghost Hunter with tears in his eyes. Ghost Hunter paused for a moment, and he looked down, feeling pity. He was, after all, someone who tried so hard to stiff someone. Tell you what, I'll give you some free advice. Get a divorce while you can, he said, removing a single denarius from his pocket and dropping it in front of Gary's outreaching hands. Taking the rest of his money, he opened the door and began to walk to his car to drive away without ever being seen.